Why do we just accept that companies will do whatever they want with our data? The system doesn't need an update. It needs a rewrite.
All opinions expressed by hosts and podcast guests are solely their own opinions. Hosts and podcast guests may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.
So I'm very excited to have CL207, also known as Cat or CL, as my guest today. For people that are listening to the audio version, I'm talking to an animated cat in a hazmat suit, and I couldn't be more excited. The world brings you in really funny ways to what you're doing. So, Cat, the first question I wanted to ask was this. We did as much research as we could. I followed you for as long as I've been in crypto, but I was trying to figure out where, CL207 came from. And I believe CL20 is a explosive of some sort, a chemical explosive found at China Lake by the Navy in California. That's as close as I got to trying to figure it out. And I'm not trying to dox you, but I thought a fun place to start would be, who was Cat before Cat was created? Where were you before crypto began? And then where did this idea of creating an avatar come from?
So creating an avatar is quite like a common thing amongst streamers who want to stream anonymously, because like just any kind of streamer, like on Twitch they do like video games or just like that kind of stuff. And a lot of them get stressed out, putting out their real face, because then they gotta look good, they gotta like make sure their hair is not fucked up, and if they're a girl they put makeup that takes an hour for them, so it gets quite emotionally draining to do that for hours on a daily basis, making a living out of like just getting some viewers. So this thing kind of started, and then it's more like fantasy, it's it's cool, so that's the thing. So I always found that quite interesting, so just like the online world, right? So I got this too, but the origin was, I believe, from 2019. Another big trader called Light Crypto, you probably know him on Twitter. He once spammed in my DM a bunch of cat pictures, and there's a few levels of story to this, but like he kind of initiated this this thing into me, and I was like, you know what, yeah, this is what I always wanted to be for some reason. So I was like, fuck it, let me copy paste this picture, it's my profile picture now. And then it got more evolved over time. I found another picture that got popular on, I think, Weibo or something. It's like this Chinese Twitter thingy, and I put it as my profile. But then I was like, this it's just like another like cat that went viral on the internet. Whatever. It's not like very like authentic or like very original. So COVID came, and all these people were like putting on the like a hazmat suit as like this. Yeah, I don't know if it was a trend for like a month. They add a hazmat suit in their profile picture. So they can't get COVID. So I got one, and it was yellow, and I was like, wait a second. I actually had like the kind of like a chemist, what do you call it, lab coat. So this suits well on me. I like it. I'm gonna keep it forever. So then I got artists to like draw this thing like in a nicer way, and then it just kept evolving until now. But going back to the chemical, like I used to be a, let's just say, underground chemist. I don't have a degree, I don't have a certificate. I actually failed chemistry for a bunch of reasons. But at the same time, I do have like quite, I would say, I hate bragging, but I would say they're quite high level writing in like actually published like academic journals, right? On topics on like, yeah, explosives, because I love to blow things up. Like I was pyromaniac
No,
as
that's
a
right.
kid. I don't know if I've pronounced it correctly. Like I don't go up. I don't know. I've never walked up to someone and said I'm a pyromaniac. So I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. But yeah, something like that. Um, and I was always interested in these like high explosives, or just like um I was doing a lot of research into safer and more powerful explosives because it was just like uh, a direction that field was going into while I was studying it. It's commonly used in like rocket fuels and like all kinds of stuff. It was just a passion of mine before crypto, so I did it out throughout high school and college, wrote about it, and then one day on a forum, like an amateur chemistry forum, um, and I say amateur because no one there has a real name, right? It's just like, oh, blow shit up 85 or some shit like some shit like that. And then the crazy part is like the the forum discussions are all very high level. And one day, like I got this DM, which like a lot of people DM each other on like random ideas. Someone DM me on like a post I made of like some theoretical synthesis of like a theoretical compound that might be promising, and he's like, "Yo, this is cool. Like, what do you do? Like, how? Like, just to introduce myself, I've worked at China like before, and now I'm a professor at uh, a big school in United States. Like." And I told him, I'm just like 18 years old, like fresh out of high school. And he's like, "Oh, no way. Like come like study under my department like at this school, right? Just so you know, if you're not a US citizen though, like you might need to get the citizenship to get approved for hazmat certificate and all that like signed whatever stuff about you not leaking whatever you study back to other places." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is like my dream. I can't believe this guy's legit and like and all that." And he is legit, right? Like because like I read his posts and like it's whatever he's been publishing about like on his own. So yeah, all of this was like kind of like the backstory of why
Wow.
name CL. Yeah. Okay, I didn't end up actually going and pursuing that PhD, because right after undergrad, um I was like, dude, I'm poor as shit. Like I need to worry about what if I can still
Hmm.
Uber Eats next month, like so I was like, what can I do to make money? I've heard about a crypto like maybe a year before. So I got into trading, made no money for 2 years, but I think the luckiest part throughout my journey was my mom never really pressuring me like, dude, son, go get a real job. What the fuck are you doing, loser? Like she was just like, okay, go do whatever you're doing. And after 2 years, also luckily, I became consistently profitable. I found a bunch of stuff in the market that it just always worked. It still works today. I just trade based on positions and a lot of people being squeezed here, like up and down this market.
So, first of all, it sounds like you have a fantastic mom who lets you kind of follow what you were looking for, which was pretty far ranging from chemical explosive expert to trading crypto. Um, in the crypto market, as you entered, you were saying, you've said it before that you were very poor, and this is all about trying to bootstrap and make money, and it didn't work for 2 years. What gave you the conviction to stick with it? I don't think you trained in finance or you didn't work for anyone. Were you just alone trying to figure this out?
Yeah, well, yeah. So in 2018, later on in 2018, I got in, bought some Bitcoin, swapped to some shitcoin, trying to make more Bitcoin, and that's the first thing I try to do. It went okay, I didn't lose much money, I didn't make much money. I think, and then I was like, this is some weak stuff. Like I bought Bitcoin at like 3,000. It's now 12,000. This is like mid 2019 now, and I'm still poor. I bought like what, one Bitcoin. My net worth went from like 3,000 to 12,000, and now I gotta sell this stuff so I can buy some food again. So I was like, this is not going anywhere. Like buying Bitcoin, waiting for it to go up sucks. So I was like, I need to like actually make a lot of money to like uh or this thing has to go to like 10 million bucks in next month, so so I can keep feeding myself. So this sucked. So I logged onto BitMEX. I know like BitMEX had a terrible reputation because like no one knows what they're doing, right? Like so everyone is like, yeah, I made a BitMEX account and I lost it all. Yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Yo, so I was like, but I was like, let me give it a try anyways, and I lost, a few grand. Whatever I deposited, and I'm like, well, fuck, this is hard. and I had just high curiosity for why price moved one way or another, and I just kept digging like, okay, who bought today? Why did this go up? And it's like go through all the exchanges, look at all the trade history. I'm like, wow, okay, I guess maybe today Binance Spot led the move, or I just kept digging why every move happened. Like, I couldn't figure it out, because like to the average person, they don't know why price went up. Yeah, they're just like, yeah, more people bought, but like what's like the deeper level, like why did they buy, or like or like where did the buying happen, like can we front run this while it's happening, can I gain a few bips on leverage if I see like a big consistent buying, like. So yeah, so I kept going deeper and deeper, and I think after a while it just clicked, where I'm like, wow, all the trading actually happens on BitMEX back then, because that's where all the volumes are, all the open interest, like people are gambling like 50 million, $100 million positions over if the next Coinbase buyer is gonna buy a million or sell a million. So I was like, this is nuts. Like people are gambling like a crazy amount, and then later on realize, wait, the price always go against like the majority, right? Like if everyone was longing for like weeks on weeks, and then it tend to just start dropping, because ultimately they gotta close their positions, and vice versa. If everyone was just so bearish, and you see spot selling, and then you see futures shorting, and it's like, okay, more likely than not, these shorts are gonna close, or it might just bounce a bit. So yeah, over time I think I just like learned how it works. And honestly, the best part about trading Bitcoin was that there wasn't fundamentals. There wasn't gonna be like a earnings report that's like, oh, it's so bad that even though everyone shorted, it kept going down because the earnings sucked so bad, So there was no fundamentals, and the literal fundamental was only people's positioning and just general market sentiment. So I thought, this is the greatest video game on earth. So I just did that all day, every day for like years. I would literally wake up, do this thing in my room, and then pass out. In my dreams, I'd be dreaming about charts going up and down, and then I woke up and do this again. So yeah, so years go by, and I think I got better at it over time. And I think ever since I started becoming quite profitable, and I cashed out to buy some stuff, I've actually never had like long
It's
term
impressive.
drawdowns.
So
Yeah,
during that period, because I've heard rumors about this with you, that some people, when
right.
they get into trading, they start to either they get they're super curious, just like I was when I was a kid, looking at like, oh, I bought a stock, and I remember as a kid, I told my father, someone bought me a stock, and I'm like, this is just legalized gambling for adults, and like, no, it's investing. And I ended up going down this rabbit hole, and I read all these investment books and went into finance, but it always was a question to me of the differences between gambling, speculation, and investing. And as I was listening to you, waking up, going to sleep, dreaming about charts, the thing I've heard about you is that like you didn't build like quantitative systems or an algorithm, that you literally just trained yourself to be staring at charts, and that your edge is something intuitive that you've built over time. It's not like a thing of code you're running. Is that true? This show is sponsored by OKX. Want to stop paying for trading fees? You can now trade for free for 2 months with OKX. Globally, over 20 million traders and institutions choose OKX when they want to trade. And you can join them today by signing up at okx.com/landing page/OKX Trader Series and start your 2 months of fee-free trading.
It's a bit of both. After spending long time, you tend to know a bit of like, yeah, a bit of intuition for sure. Like I think everyone that trades have they built up this intuition over time. Something that's hard to describe. It's just like, yeah, and but the more quantitative part is just like watching orders come in, and then I try to memorize every position that I've ever opened, which is maybe a bit insane, but like I would just stare at BitMEX, open interest ticks up a bit. This guy bought, okay, he fucking long, and then like I'll memorize that position. I'll try to imagine where he might invalidate, where he might take profit, and then I try to remember it like throughout the days, you know. Like damn, everyone's been buying for like last 3 days. Open interest is skyrocketing. Spot haven't bought much. So is this rally is like all like say futures driven, and I'm like, and let's say this happened before. Yeah, I can back test. It's not like a real back test. It's just like a intuitive back test, and it's like last 4 times this happened, it haven't gone very very well. So let me short it. It's more likely than not. And I try to manage my risks, and I don't even have like really like a mental. I just have a mental risk model, really. Like, if it goes up too much more, I'll just like be wrong, or something like that, and I'll probably risk like approximately this amount on this trade, um, and that's it. So a lot of it is kind of intuitive, like in terms of like risk management, where I should enter, and but there is also the quantitative part, which is like how much people are paying for to keep their positions open, because in crypto there's no fundamentals. So like as too much buying happens in futures, too much selling happens on futures, they tend to drive the lending rates up and down. Like how much does it cost to borrow another dollar right now to buy more crypto, or how much does it cost to borrow more Bitcoin right now to short more Bitcoins? And these are very powerful information to have, and these are all public information. Y- yeah. So I think there's a bit of both to it. Yeah.
So just double clicking on that, because I know that, as you started kind of sharing your knowledge, you were one of the experts or people that others would look to about how futures worked and options markets. And so you were trying to build basically a profile of buyers and sellers to understand how the market was positioned and how you wanted to be positioned against it.
Right.
But when someone puts a futures trade on, there's someone buying and there's someone selling. So in your example, were you looking at funding rates, or how are you trying to piece together, oh, there's someone who everyone wants to know that information,
Right.
but that's not always easily available. So how did you put that together?
Yeah, there's always someone for every long. People say there's a short, so like how does this work? But like in reality, people that make the market, they're not gonna be degenerates and be like, okay, if everyone longs, I'm just gonna be short against them. That's crazy. They'll blow up sometime if they just took on these kind of directional risks. So they will try to obtain the same amount of spot against their short. So I think most of these firms are delta neutral, or if they are exposed, it's kind of short. It's periods amount of time, or very short amount of periods. So yeah, I'm not a market maker. But I know they don't take like crazy amounts of risk over like anything more than like hours or days. Like that's just crazy for them, right? Like so
Mm-hmm.
so if you long, there is a short, yes, but like that short is backed up by like a real spot purchase, because you bought futures, which is like backed up by spot, right? So the buyer have invalidation, the buyer have a liquidation level, or the buyer can be buying on leverage, right? So and a while ago there was like a profile of like average amounts of leverage used, like 5x is popular, 10x is popular. So if everyone longed like 10k, if we go to 9k, you can expect a lot of people to get liquidated who's on 10x, right? Or not, even if they're not on 10x, they're probably invalidated and they're just gonna sell, right? So a lot of these is, I think, kind of intuitive, like where people get
Mm-hmm.
invalidated, and there's a lot of like quote unquote like stop loss hunting, like all that kind of like whatever bullshit terms people trying to come up with, but they are kind of real, and they are kind of like it it just happens. People can't take so much more loss after price go against them for a certain amount of time, right? So
So I've heard you in the past talk about invalidation, the seasoning of a position, how long or when do people own it? Like what is their price? So I guess an interesting way to ask this would be, you were in Japan on a vacation having a lot of fun and you didn't check the screens for a week. If I brought you back and I said, Kat, I want to get a pulse of what's going on in the market, where would you start putting that picture back together if you hadn't seen it for a while?
I try to not just straight up trade unless it's like somewhat like stupidly obvious, but that's kind of rare, like I would say. But I would first probably just look at yeah, just the price of everything, and then be like, okay, cool. Maybe the biggest cats like Bitcoin East a lot and like stuff like that, right? And then see um like probably like if it's now, I would pull up Binance Futures, Bybit. These are maybe OKX. These are some of the biggest venues right now. I would say most price are driven by these three venues. And for spot, definitely also Coinbase. So I try to go back, see, um, look at these trading, and sometimes it's not as simple as just like, oh, who bought, like how much buying, how much selling, because like the buying can be what do you call it? It can be hidden in the form of a bid, and then on the trade history it would show up as a sell just because they kept chasing a bid. So like it takes a while to like go through all of that, be like, okay, that was actually a bid, even though people were selling nonstop on Coinbase, but that was just like bids chasing and refilling and chasing. So you kind of go through all of that, like, and then go on futures. Is lending rate jacked up, one way or another, or and like what made people go long? What made people go short lately? Was there like some kind of narrative, or like what, is Bitcoin getting banned for the 10th time? Like, or is like BlackRock file like five more ETF, like like, so yeah. Why does this position happen to be in the current state? Just look at a bit of everything, get an idea. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had it today. So right before we were supposed to talk, the SEC rumor, the Wall Street Journal published a headline, which is a really weird headline, that the SEC said the BlackRock and Fidelity ETFs might have had inadequate information. The funny thing about that is, and I posted this on Twitter, if you read it, which I've never seen this happen before, so maybe I missed this, but it was basically kind of giving an answer to the test, which said they wanted them to declare where they were going to trade. So I don't think it was as negative as the market thought, but the market moves rapidly.
Right.
And something like that, I guess, are you, because we had to delay for you to do some trading. Does that get your attention? And then a follow-up to that is like, what is your average holding period? Is it you're in and out in a couple of minutes, hours, days, weeks, months?
I would say, honestly, if you're trading futures, no one do month. Like, dude, if you do month, chances are price have gotten up that, and you haven't taken profit, and then gone against you to the point you had to close. Like, month in crypto is crazy. Like, so I would say the average position holding for the average trader is like, days, weeks, which is why this market is so crazy. Like I believe it's similar in stocks. In the analogy that people buy for a short term or mid term gain, they don't think in decades, unless it's some retirement dude that's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna buy Apple for the next 10 years. That like there is that kind of people in crypto, but like their flows are not strong enough to be like pushing price up 5% up and down like each other day. That like these are all like short term traders. Probably on leverage, probably like spending a lot of premiums on options, like just gambling on these stuff, right? Or not, maybe they're gambling, maybe they're like somewhat informed, but I like to think they're not super informed. Yeah. So yeah, and so which is why I'm also pretty short term, because like that's why where most of the action happens and where most of my money was made, just somewhat like pretty short term, days, hours, something like that. Yeah.
So walk us through today, to the extent you can share. It's a really volatile day. What did Cat's kind of trading day look like today?
Well, I woke up and Bitcoin was already like that move already happened. Like it dropped like 4% or something. Like just because they're like, oh, this filing looks inadequate. I mean, and it's a great reason to sell. Like especially if you saw the news first, right? Like if you're long a lot and you're on leverage, you're like, dude, no way, you're holding that risk through the next few hours, right? Like that's just crazy to hold. Like if you were leveraged, so it does make sense. Price drop. Um, and some alts have rallied after that move, which also kind of makes sense. Alts have been crushed against Bitcoin in terms of their ratios, right? And it's because Bitcoin just had such a great narrative for you to just hold it. Like, why am I bidding this shitcoin if like you know like the legit people are trying to get an ETF going, right? So So I was trying to bid ETH, and by the time I brushed my teeth, it was already up another 0.5%. I went to Cumberland, and I'm like, what are the calls right now? Like, how much does this cost? After I coded, price went up another 0.2%. I'm like, dude, shit, this is a crazy day. So yeah, I kind of just gave up buying calls, and I bought a bit of perps and called it a day. Like, so yeah, that was today.
So I want to talk about kind of your the track record of trading. So I know that you've done very well at this, but from following you, it seems like there were times where you had done, you started with nothing, and then you got to extreme levels of wealth, and then maybe it was FTX or other situations that you lost a lot of it, and you've built it back up over time. I'm curious what you've learned from those ups and downs. And then how does that make you think about risk today? Like the idea of using leverage or exposing yourself to a big drawdown.
Yeah, so it's the first time I lost everything on whatever I deposited, was BitMEX. Back then that was where all the liquidity is, so, and all the trading happened. So yeah, I think in 2018, 19, I've deposited like 2 grand, and then I would do quite well and then just lose it all again back to 2 grand. And that happened like 5 times, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, maybe I'll just never make it, and and I noticed, like, sometimes I just take position randomly, just because, like, I don't know, I'm impatient or all that kind of stuff, or like I'm betting on some data point that's like, it's just so trivial. Like, why am I betting against like 5 traders when I could be waiting for like 50 big traders to short before I long? Like what like so, and just like giving up on your position. For a while I was like, nah, this has to go back up. Or but over time I've gotten to more used to, like, I'm just wrong. I need to accept this and get out. Like even if price bounce later, I deserve to lose this money right now for, and even like deciding to enter this position, to not have predicted that market can be more wrong than it is, right? Because that happens a lot. Because like especially in 2021, like I would say a good amount of even retail investors was aware we were in a bubble, right? It was just like the greed, like, oh no, I can get another X10 buying some low cap shitcoin, or low cap stock, or like Nokia can squeeze again, like, come on. Like, or AMC can squeeze again, like, so I think a lot of this, people just don't really, they try to wish some bubble lasts longer. They try to wish some extremes go more extreme, and for the people that bet against it, they think it's already extreme. They try to not, um I think where people get wrecked the most is they don't think how extreme markets can get. That can really hurt like someone like in size. Yeah. And and I've tried to not, like, um I've been giving up my positions, if I think, there is a, this possibility it can go extremely against me. And I try to never take a position where, I might just lose it all. Like, for a while there's this contract on FTX called Move, which is basically like a selling a straddle, right? And it's like, selling a straddle, you can lose everything, so I have sold these contracts before, but, like, I'm very cautious on invalidating myself. Like, if there's even a possibility, like, a few traders can get squeezed, that might induce more FOMO buying, that might, start a whole trend. I'll just like shave that position off right away. I stop, and very often I try to never sell options, like, just because it's like, dude, you're in crypto, like, or even it's the stock market, like the power of trends, and like, just meant these herd mentality, it can go very far, and you can get really wrecked on, like, betting against these. Yeah.
When I've met traders who have started with very little and made it, I've noticed, two outcomes, I would say. One is they make it and then they lose their desire to take risk because now they have something and they become really afraid. They're driven by the fear of the loss because they've worked so hard to get to that point. And there's another side, which is, well, I never had this money anyways, so it really doesn't matter. So they're able to trade very freely. Do you think that you fall into either of those camps?
Definitely the first one, because like I've never worked a job, right? Like after college, I just started trading, and my mom gave me a few grand to trade. I lost the half of that, and I was like, "Yo, can I have a few more grand?" They're like, "Come on," and then she was like, "No." So I was like, "Fuck, I'm selling my PC to get more collateral." So I ended up trading on a laptop back up. But yeah, so after I did all of that, like I cannot imagine like losing everything. So then I have to get a job. Like, are you serious? I'm getting a job? Like, I'm not getting a job. Like so. Uh, uh, um, which this is another downside though, because I think once a trader that like, especially like what I did was like I spent years just in my room. Like I was an actual like these like the typical like incel on Reddit or something, you know, like I never left my room. I don't talk to women. I don't talk. I didn't talk to anyone. I was just like, dude, this is my world. I'm doing this all day, every day. So after I I made I made some amount that's not bad. I started going out. I socialized. I went to parties. I flew around. I traveled the world. I'm like, I don't want to lose this anymore. So sometimes I think about it and I'm like, if I kept doing it, I would have been like, significantly more wealthy than today. But on the other hand, like, will I regret it if by the time I'm 40, like this is all I did. I didn't do anything with my money. Like, why do I even have this, right? So I can't tell what I'll feel in the future. But at the moment, yeah, I do appreciate that I have the freedom to kind of do whatever I want. Yeah.
That's awesome. So when you've tweeted in the past about losing it all or the FTX drawdown stuff, that hurt you, but it never really brought you back down to having to truly start over.
Oh yeah, I lost quite like a lot, like for any normal person's like you it was a lot, but it wasn't all my money. It's close to 50% of my liquid, which is that's a lot. So, but that doesn't make does I don't have to get a job, but I wouldn't mind getting a side like part-time like chill thing, but I never yeah, I still don't have to get a job, so I'm still very lucky for that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have the freedom to decide what you want to do and where you want to work,
Yeah.
which is pretty special. So you, as you went through this trading kind of growth and to get to this point, now looking back on it, was there ever a point where you felt like, you're smart, you worked in a hard science, like this is all just randomness, this is just noise, and you get into this analysis paralysis and you think you see stuff but you're really hallucinating and it's all like unknowable? Like, did you ever believe there was no edge to be found, or were you convinced if you just kept digging hard enough you could actually develop an edge to out trade the market?
No, there's always edge for people to be found. Like these are all not coincidences or anything, because like people see stuff in the market and they're like in stocks, people would see like, oh damn, like every eight, like this specific time, like this weird buying happens and this flow comes from I don't know where, but if it happens every day, if or like every week, or like some rebalance, some index related shit, like I know a lot of traders have taken advantage of it on it, like until it disappeared, or like, and then they go on and find another thing, that weird thing that happens in the market, and they're like, yeah, let me do this now, and in crypto it's more like just pure positioning. Like, yeah, I sold Bitcoin quite early on into like 2021. I sold a lot at 30 and then sold everything at like 40s, and then I went to 60. But like, and I can't chase it anymore. But uh, like a lot of these stuff is like how do you explain? Like, and for the lower time frame, like a lot of the trading, like it's like I'm sure any everyone that's profitable knows, they just know that this edge exists, and it might be hard to convince the average like new trader, like, because it does seem very random. Like, dude, how can we just move 10% today? Like nothing caused this, and then like if you dig deeper, it's like, dude, a lot of people were short, or like no one had a lot of long exposure, so it didn't, like, there was less resistance if no one is like to take a profit against a move, or just or if it was shorter, then a lot of force buying happened into like these invalidation levels, or so these all are all real. um it's hard because a lot of smart people are on this, right? Like there's no better incentive than getting smart people in than just making hella money. Like so so it's getting competitive. It's But there is still a lot of edge. Yeah, like even today. Yeah.
Um, when I think about like sources of information you're taking, I know that you're really obsessed with looking at data and flow, or leverage. I also think about information sources like Twitter, which are a huge part of crypto Twitter, and then Discord, Telegrams, private chats. When you think about data, then like publicly available stuff like Twitter and Discord, or public Discords, and then private like your chats, how do you think about where you get the most amount of alpha and edge from?
Oh, actually, I I've never I've rarely traded off chats, just because like when I started, I did it all on my own. I did talk to people, which helped me shape some views, but ultimately I think I most of my trading is around my own mental model, um, which I think it's yeah, it's just my own mental model of like let me think how market is positioned today, and I would just go through all the exchange, like check all the buying, selling, check all the open interest moving up and down, check all the lending rates on these exchanges, and that just gives me a view. Like I don't need someone to tell me, like or I can hire someone and do this for me, but like it doesn't take it's not like rocket science where you can figure it out, you cannot figure it out. But like you might have better insights if you get a real quant that like let me make even a better form of data for you. Like yeah, sure, but like yeah, I don't have someone like that, so I do it on my own. And I do think a lot of people trade on narratives, which I really hate, because it just induces a lot of one-sided positioning, and it's like, dude, it's just really hard for me to like buy into a position where everyone's also want to position into that position, and it's just like, dude, it's just so risky. Like one bad thing happens, and it's like like all these people have to fold, and you're like racing against each other while price is teleporting against you. So I really hate narrative trading. And I ideally, if you do trade like these shit coins that is way more narrative based than I think Bitcoin, um like you got to get on these pretty early on, which I'm not a like I'm not gonna try to act like an expert in this, because I've never made too much money off doing trading altcoins. Like like my trading has always been stacking up like these couple percentage moves on Bitcoin or Ether. So yeah.
So when you're looking at the data, which I like, and I like the fact that you do it on your own, because it really allows you to have a clear mind to think for yourself. And you see something, you see that funding rates are offsides and you really want to go long. Do you ever, do the chats ever, like influence you or other people's opinions when, let's say, a narrative starts to pick up? Does it ever make you question your data, or will you get even more conviction that all these narrative following people are idiots and I'm going to crush them by really going the opposite way because of your process?
Maybe there is a bit, like when I see a lot of like bigger traders talk about the ETF, but I don't like I can tell from the way they're texting each other they are not long yet. So I'm like, all right, screw you guys. I'm buying some calls for now, and then like and then gonna go get a coffee and come back, something like that. But I don't think it really impacts my decision significantly. Like obviously I respect everyone's opinion, but like ultimately, like I've always had this very strong belief that if you cannot build your own thesis to why you're getting into a position, or like you don't have your own like ways of trading, then you're just copying others. Like then you're just not gonna like Like it just won't go right one day. Like you can't just be like just copy trade GCR only for rest of your life. Like 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 he tweets like what, like 5 times a year. Like what you like like you can't just copy some trader like all the time. Like you need to know how to do it yourself.
No, it deeply resonates. It's the best advice I ever got from an animated cat, that you should think for
Yeah.
yourself. So I appreciate that. Um, let's move to your kind of switch topics a little bit off of trading. As I can imagine, you were doing this, basically 24 hours a day, waking up trading. Um, I know that a lot of people feel an adrenaline rush from it. There's the thrill, there's the money, there's the prospects of what you could do. But what other things in your life, you talk a lot of, you talk sometimes about food, about shopping, about travel. I'm curious, as you've progressed as a trader and you've built more wealth, how has your focus and your enjoyment and that risk-seeking behavior changed?
I think my first time where I got really like disgusted by the volatility and like swings in net worth was in 2021. I held some SNX and Aave back then. I don't usually own a lot of alts, but these kept going up, so they became like more significant. Like let's say it was 2% of my net worth. Now it's like what, 15%? Like Jesus Christ! Like now I wake up and say, I'm up like a Lambo. That's a good start. After I finished breakfast, I was down 2 Lambos, and I'm like, dude, what the hell? Like this is crazy. So like that morning, I was just like, this is disgusting. Like I hate that I'm thinking in this way, and it was because I started going out and I realized like this is a lot of money. Like because I had no concept of like money, no concept of spending. It feels really fake if you're actually always in your room. And I think it's either really good to realize this or really bad to realize this, because like if you're just good at trading, it might worth to just stay inside 1 or 2 or 3 more years. Just don't think, just don't realize it's real money, because like you might just keep making more and more. But once you do realize like, oh, dude, like this is like you can do a lot with this money, then I feel like your risk really change, like your appetite really changes. And yeah. So and then I got into like other hobbies. I think fashion's awesome. I think some art is all art stuff is really cool. So I follow these, and I realize I hang out with different kinds of people, and I realize like these people save 10-20 bucks to do something else. Or if they can walk 15 minutes, they're not gonna take a cab. Unlike me, I was like this dumbass that's just like, oh, I can spend to get there faster. Like, fuck it, let's do it. And then I see, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is ridiculous. Like, I should just walk. And then it's like, wow, I walked to save 20 bucks. Why am I taking risk of like significantly more? So I feel like as you go about your daily life, I think like actual normal life that's not just in your room. Like, I think it really, really like gives you this reality crisis about, wow, this is like crazy what you're doing.
You're very passionate about fashion. What is it about that got your attention? Was, I mean, you're kind of talking about being so focused 24 hours in your bedroom. How did like kind of the world open up to you in that way? And what is it about fashion that has got your interest?
Well, so I try to go date some girls, and then so the problem was, like a first time I meet this girl, and I was just like, I can't describe what I was wearing. Let's just say it's super casual and it's almost like pajamas, okay? And I was in sandals, and like she didn't shit on me for it. Obviously that's kind of rude.
Yeah.
But later on she was like, you can definitely go buy some nice drip. Like, why not? So I was like, okay, okay, I know I may be, it may be an embarrassment to walk next to you wearing this shit, so let me let me go buy some stuff. So I got into this shop. I actually spent a long time. Like actually every few days of the week, I just walked around random stores browsing. Some of them are like kind of like a scam. It's like Louis Vuitton, and some of them are like just like no name brands, but like some designer trying to like make it, like all different kinds of stores. Um, yeah, and I always had a strong intrigue into just buying weird stuff and like identity, because I do think what you wear kind of makes you feel one way or another. And I was super interested by that because NFTs were booming, people were changing their profile pictures into all that kind of weird stuff, and they're like, this is me now. And I'm like, ugh, this is, I don't like this. I wish people were original characters, like just be themselves. And if you want to add additions to your things, like that's awesome. But I slightly dislike the profile picture NFT trend, but not too against it. Whatever, you can do whatever you want, right? Like not everyone's like super creative, they make up some weird character for themselves. But f- fashion was like kind of the something like that. It's just like, you're still you, you're adding something, you're changing the vibe of how you feel, how others see you as. So I was super interested by that, because I wasn't always into like social sciences or like behavior psychology or like all that kind of stuff, but that really got me interested into it, because trading is a bit of like behavior, and like the why people were changing all their profile pictures into all of this kind of thing. Well, that was a fascinating behavior to, I wanted to read about, I wanted to understand it. So yeah, it's not directly related, but I do think there's some overlap in psychology of like how you want to be shown to others,
Oh, I
right?
I 100%
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
That's actually the part of trading that I like the most. The data was always like checking, and that part was felt as a foundation. But I was most interested in the behavioral, the risk, why people would do what they would do. And the only thing about money, introducing markets to it, is it made it more tangible. Someone might tell you, I really believe in this, but how much do you believe in it? And if you bet me $1,000 and that's a lot of money to you, then I really know you believe in it. So that was the part that I always have liked about markets. And your point is interesting because the PFP thing and people's identity, which we've talked about in the past,
right,
like my profile is a Bored Ape, but it's a custom one that I had an artist do for me. And I
right,
feel very similar that making your own avatar is super cool, but it's like sewing your own clothes. It's super unique. It's super original. But going to
yeah,
Gucci, you can feel individual, but Gucci sells that outfit, or Vuitton, to everyone. But people have the feeling of individuality that they're showing stuff. And this is
right,
me. And so I think that's amazing. And so, there's a little bit of a dust up this week, but I think it connects the point here that one of the things when the PFP thing happened, I know people, because of the bull market, were obsessed with the prices and people have made a lot of money. What got me so excited about it was the notion that we're in a period of bias and not treating each other equally. But if you have an avatar and you're on Twitter, as an example, and you're anonymous, I don't know if you're a man or a woman. I don't know the color of your skin. I don't know your sexual orientation. I don't know your religion. All I know is your thoughts. And I think that is awesome and fascinating that I could be like, I really like following this cat or this wolf or this ape or whatever. And I know people thought it was so silly and ridiculous, and there were parts of it, but I was kind of bummed that we lost that. And it was funny because this week kind of dusted that up again. So, what's your take on the anonymity piece? Obviously, you've done this for a long time. I can imagine it's tough that you might go somewhere and I won't know it's you. But how do you think about the pros and cons of anonymity in an online age?
well, it's a bit different for every anonymous character or person or whatever being you are in the shape or form, like. But something funny, a story I wanted to share was uh we were in this chat, and we were talking to, it was just some traders and fund managers, and then this girl was like talking about age, and I asked her like, oh, how old are you? I didn't know you were like this range. And then two people from the group messaged me, they're like, dude, you're not supposed to ask a girl her age, but like it's so funny that it works because you're a cat and it's not rude anymore. And I'm like, what? I didn't know that was rude. Sorry. And and I thought it was hilarious that it was more okay for me to ask than someone who had a real picture of themselves to ask that question. But but going back, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of freedom in like what I can say, and I don't feel like I'm when I go out, people like be like, holy shit, it's this dude, just because like everyone knows them by their face. I don't get that treatment, and if they do know me, I may get a bit of a treatment where it's like they might be nicer to me, they might be like more enthusiastic to meet me. But yeah, I think and I do know some real streamers that are quite big. I once had a dinner with a big gamer who's also a big streamer called Skara. He played a lot of League. I don't know if you know him, but he played in like professional esports, and we were in LA where a lot of streamers live and like gaming is big. And in the dinner, two people ran up to the table we were eating at and be like, "Yo, please," and like, I let me get a picture of us. And he's like, "Sure, yeah," and they just take a picture and leave, like, and no other conversation, nothing else. They just wanted a picture, and I was like, and immediately he was like, this is super cool when it first started happening, but now it's more of a hassle. And I was like, it does seem super cool, but like I can if he doesn't like it anymore, I can then I would take his words for it, because he actually gone through like a few years of having people run up to him in LA and just like ask for a picture, right? So yeah, I wouldn't know about that world because I'm not like face doxed. Like people don't know me by my face, but yeah.
Well, I think there's a very interesting point that I've known people that went from, you know, average like everybody else to making a lot of money and suddenly being famous, or they became famous and made a lot of money. And one of the things I found was like that fame is definitely something that can help you. It can open doors. People know you. You probably can do things and open opportunities. But then there's a point where maybe you get whatever you were after and now you don't want it anymore and you want to turn it off. But the problem was it was the fuel that got you there in the first place. The fascinating thing about anonymity is if you get there, you never have to give it back because you still have your own privacy. It was just kind of like having your cake and eating it too. I find it weird right now, personally. Like, I'd love to talk to a psychologist about why I'm comfortable talking. Like, this is I don't feel odd talking to you. It's a cat with a smiling face and big eyes, but it's very, it's easy. And I think that for other people, I don't know if they'd ever even admit that, but, talk to a person and you're reading their facial expressions and your brain is calculating a bunch of things. Now, maybe not everyone does this, but is this person interested? Are they bored? Are they distant? Are they looking at their watch? Do they want to go somewhere? Right now, for the past however time we've been recording, you've been smiling at me with these big cat eyes in a very kind way. It's weird, but it's not as hard or stressful as analyzing all the micro expressions on another human's face and trying to react to it.
It's super cool because like I think having this kind of avatar, like, it allows me to express most of the basic of more emotions, and yeah, just like all these, we like the face is super complex, right? So like you notice a lot of things. Like you can tell someone's like disinterested, and like, you're like, okay, yeah, I should really call it, and you know, but yeah, I think it allows me to at least express most basic emotions and like maybe a bit of micro expression, but I don't think my avatar is refined enough for every micro expression, which I would love to have that made. I think the tech is getting there recently, and I've seen some higher quality defined and like just really well made ones. But yeah, I think this allows me to also like I can put the setting on like the base setting as like 1% smiley, right? So it always appear more smiley, but so that's just like another freedom. Like you can change a bit of like how you look, change like like the small parameters and like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's really free, and um it's nice. I don't have to like make my hair and all that. Like make sure I look good on this interview. Like I don't have to be stressed about all that. I don't have to put up a suit. Like look proper. You know, all that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like there's this idea of people are always putting on masks when they're talking to people and they're presenting, and it's usually meant, metaphorically. They're presenting, if you wanted to go to a job interview, you might put a suit on, or if you were going on a date, you might try to dress in a certain way. There's like the physical appearance, but then there's also the type of person you are. Like you really want to, impress the person in a certain way. And there's just something about it that I find fascinating about the PFPs or the anonymity that I think is a huge, powerful unlock that we scraped on when NFTs came out, and then we just kind of we moved by it, maybe too fast. But hopefully we'll revisit it again. So on the topic of fame, your Twitter profile is pretty huge. You have got a huge fan base, including like Edward Snowden. And I just find it crazy that someone like that's responding to a cat online. So how did the whole Twitter thing grow? How did you become talking with Snowden? Like, how did this all happen?
Yeah, I don't know how much I can share with Snowden, but I think I've been always kind of genuine, which a lot of people on Twitter has some motive. They're like, I'm gonna make like 50 threads about how to make money, and then now I have 50K followers. Now I can get this affiliate like shilling, or like this kind of collab with some weird pro project, and they're gonna pay me a big bank like a 50 grand just for me to talk about their project for 2 weeks. So I think there is a lot of people like that, and there's a lot of like genuine people. But overall, like let's be real, I do think finance, um like I tend to think of every like field having like this kind of distribution of types of people, right? Like let's say a normal like call center, it's like kind of normal people, and then art, let's say we have like maybe slightly shifted to slightly more kind and slightly more like emotional people. And then like for me, I think finance is slightly more, a couple percentage skewed to like slightly more psychopaths. But you always have this distribution. There's nice people, there's bad people, there's people that are not scamming at all, but they are extractive, or they're just like normal people, right? So I think being like out of never like like if like tweeted any project, like even the ones I invested in, like some of them, like can we you get something out of, like, dude, that's not what I invested in you in for. That's not, you know if if you want your shit to get attention, like, um or like if you want your token to go up, like I'm not gonna like be the one tweeting it to go up, like, like I hate that kind of stuff. So maybe that's why he once reached out to me, and like we had this conversation once, like with Snowden. He's pretty fascinating, and I was slightly surprised, like surprised that he follows crypto Twitter. Like he followed, he first talked to like Zach XBT, right, like a couple like in his replies, and then he was talking to me, and then yeah, that was that actually happened right after FTX2. He's so it really brightened me up a bit. I was like, wow, there's actually people that cares about people here. Like that's not like not just like some random, like another trader, another fund manager. Like uh yeah. So that was kind of fascinating and interesting, and I don't know, like very honored and uh, thankful that there's like even an audience outside that cares about us, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that was the question I asked when I saw it. I was like, this is kind of crazy to me that such a big geopolitical figure is following crypto Twitter to the extent that you ended up in this like niche of a niche, and it's not just the same people talking to each other. Um, sometimes it feels quite small. Um, the point you made about finance and the psychopaths, I agree that, like, it trends more towards it's money and it's driven, it's very selfishly driven. Do you ever regret not staying in chemistry?
um I've thought about a lot of that, because I I was talking to a friend, um, but yeah, I won't say his name, but let's say he's in crypto and he's in traditional finance,
Okay.
and whenever he meets someone he's like that had a passion outside crypto, he's just like, dude, I hate that you got into this. I hate it. I hate it so much. You had a real passion for this. You could have built this for SpaceX. Like you could have helped something like real. You could have, and I do feel that way. Like honestly, like what are we even doing? Like what's my contribution to society, right? Like, and I think about it. I'm like, who's my counterparty? They're probably some of them were probably broke. I hope none of them like suicided. Like it's really a disturbing question to think about.
Mhm.
Um, I've tried like donating some money to less fortunate or like just people who are passionate about some hobby that doesn't really make much money. But like in the end, like that's not much effort. I just click a button and some money is transferred over. Like, did I really contribute something? Did I really help the world? I don't think I've too much power to help the world. I'm not like a trillionaire where I can actually, decide some world direction via the billions of dollars, right? Um, yeah, I'm not that wealthy at all. So like, honestly, I can't do too much. I've considered if I should like go back and pursue like my older interests. I still love all that chemistry stuff, but yeah, it's a rough question.
It was interesting. I think the fact that you've thought about it shows you're definitely not a psychopath. That I think a lot of people I met in finance that were successful, when I met people, I would say, and young people ask this question all the time. The people that ended up in finance were usually one of three categories. The first is their parents pushed them really hard academically to get good grades to get into a good job. And this was defined as doing a good job. You went to a top school and you worked your way up. And so that was like, a third to 40%. And then another group, joined because they thought they just wanted to get rich. They wanted to make a lot of money. And that was the next like kind of biggest population is I want to get rich. So I'm going to go to finance. There's a tiny group that said they were like intellectually stimulated just by the idea, but that was always small. And there was a group of psychopaths that just really loved markets and loved trading. And if you weren't trading bonds or stocks, you'd be trading Tic Tacs or chickens or apes. It's just into your skin that you love markets and you love trading. And the thing that would end up happening is that the kids that were pushed there by their parents, they would eventually find something else or end up miserable. And then the people that went just for money, they would get burnt out. And all that was left is this really small population. And I see it in crypto, but it just feels like a younger generation of people that are kind of going through that same process. Although there's a lot of money in finance, there's a lot of people that are generally miserable because they're chasing a weird thing. And then once they get it, they have this deep reflection of like, that was what I was chasing the whole time. And so I don't think it's uncommon. I think that every person or many of the people that are in my life, I've always asked that question. Like, am I just pushing numbers around? Is this really my contribution? This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of crisis over like what the heck am I doing, really? Yeah.
That's a good thing. I think that means you're growing as a person personally. The topic of the Vision Pro goggles. So everyone's talking about AI and now the virtual artificial reality goggles. I think some of the stuff you've written on it has been great. I think two of the things that you've written that I've loved. One was about, I guess maybe we can do this one first. One was about giving your kid money to trade Fortnite skins, hoping they get rugged or deceived online, and teaching them how to find, first principles information. So I don't know if you have kids, Kat. I mean, you joke about not having a girlfriend yet, but as a parent, I think that's actually really interesting advice. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I just made it up because like, why not, right? Like, they are gonna have to be interacting with money related things at some point, and it's like, dude, it's so much economy is online now. Like I feel like it used to be cringe if you're like making some videos on YouTube, like you're just some nerd, like 10 years ago, right? Let's say in high school, if like I think someone in my classroom tried to make YouTube, and we all like a bunch of people were like, haha, like what a nerd, or like just made fun of whatever videos they put out. But now, if you get some views on YouTube, like, you get respect. And if it's like, if you're good at gaming, like you get paid to play games, and like you're famous in this niche game, or not even niche, if it's like a bigger video game like Valorant, if you're CS:GO, if you're League of Legends pro, like dude, you have so much status and respect in these wider communities, right? And it's like it's also no longer cringe to like just, I don't know, like all these online like jobs are cool now, and I do think that's where the world is going, and it just keep trending that way. So I think it's really terrible if you restricted your kids into this world, because like yeah, it's just and they're gonna have to learn the hard way later on, like one way or another. And I mentioned that skin example because I tried to buy skins one day and I got scammed, right? Like, I was buying some league accounts, and I was like, I just moved to a new region. Like I can't be bothered like getting a new account, ranking up to 30, and then finally being able to just play normal games. That takes a long time. So I was like buying a bunch of like platinum accounts, which that was my rank in the other servers. So, why not? And I got scammed, and I hated this dude. Obviously, I'm like, can't believe someone would do this. Like, what a terrible person. But like, obviously, how much does it cost for him to set up a scam online? There's no cost. Was there really any repercussion? Like, come on, let's be real. I'm not gonna sue someone over $100 for a league account, nor is anyone else, and nor can I dox him, to find this person, and like, really, am I gonna spend like weeks on weeks and months, sue this guy? Like, no way, right? So like, the cost of attacking and the cost of scamming on the internet is absolutely zero, in my opinion. And the only time you really are in trouble is you did it to a scale, or like you did it to a point it got viral, so viral that they have to deal with it. Otherwise it's like a societal problem. Like like, so yeah, the biggest ever scammers on the internet, they did get punished. But like, there's so many small ones that like, no, they will just be forgotten forever, right? Like, so the cost of scamming is really low. So I really think people should get used to that, and like, just go through this process, um, of just, having, I think getting scammed for, like $100, it's not a big lesson. And now ever since I've tried to like think about, is this dude legit, or is this forum entirely legit at all? Or like, yeah. So I think it's a great learning experience. And just like the information you find online, like, oh, this guy have a 5 good reviews on him selling accounts. Okay, let's read the reviews. Or like, are these reviews like, like just scams that's also set up to be like good reviews, so he can scam the next person? So I think a lot of these, it's a good learning process for just everyone to go through, especially if you're like going to be dealing on with any money on the internet.
So I'm curious, you may or may not have thought about this before, but when cat someday has its first kitten and you're trying to teach your kids how to think for themselves and to protect themselves, what are some of the other lessons or skills that you would want to impart on them in a world where there's just going to be even more and more disinformation and fakes and deception, and it's going to be harder and harder to find truth?
uh No, that's a hard question because I don't have kids. And from every parent that I've talked to so far, they're like, "Oh, no, you have no idea until you actually get a kid." So, I'm gonna stay in my lane as a non-kid haver, and just because I really do think it's something very different. Like, yeah, I would give them some pocket change to like mess around in these like online communities. That's definitely something I'll do. But like, there's so much other things like I'm just genuinely gonna have no idea about, I think. So yeah, I don't think I should talk too much as a no kid haver.
That's fair. Someday you'll be a kid haver, and I'm sure you'll write about it. The Vision Pro, you've become obsessed. You're extremely bullish on virtual reality, and I get the sense that you think people may be missing the point or not understanding how much of a big deal this is. What about it has you so excited?
So I've always been intrigued by VR for many years now, but I always saw it as like a very, very long term trend. And let's be real, I don't know when it's gonna take off, but like Apple have a good chance. but from what I learned, their first year they're only gonna sell 400,000 headsets because their manufacturers, Sony, doesn't have the capacity to produce a very important part of the headset, and they're very restrained on how much they can produce. So it
Hmm.
won't be taken off immediately, right? But I do believe in this bigger picture trend. But what really convinced me was VR chat. So my friend who's been into VR for like a decade now, he's like, yeah, you know, you like come check it out. And that time, that was like throughout 2019 to 2021 because like, but especially in 2021, I did buy a VR headset, because the metaverse trade was on after Facebook is like, no, we are now Meta, and I'm like, the fuck. It's a cool, that's a huge, that's such a ballsy move to take for like, like what, trillion, billions, hundreds of billions dollar company, right?
Hmm.
So I bought a headset. I'm like, yo, his name is Jin. I don't think he minds me talking about him. So Jin took me into VR chat, and I was like, this is crazy. Everyone has their own avatar, and it's their most of them are original characters. It's just like how they wanted themselves to be seen online in this world to others, right? And they're all kind of different. A lot of them are anime dudes and anime girls. Um, and I was just my own character because I got an artist to make like this cat model for me in like 3D, and I walked in as a cat with this dude, and Jin was like this cool anime dude with like a sword, wearing some blue, like kind of like a fancy soldier looking, dress. And I was like, okay, he takes me around, he shows me these worlds, and it was cool. And I met some friends, and then he took me to a virtual reality club called, oh, if I can remember the name, but he took me to a club, and I went in, and apparently it was super exclusive, and people line up to get into the server, that specific world, because at this moment, I think the limitations of like that software only allows like 60 or 50 people to get into a world at once because everyone has their own character, so they have to load all of them without like lagging too hard, right? So I got in, thankfully, to Jin because he's been an OG there, and all these people were in full body tracking suits, and I can see them dancing. I can see exactly how much they're enjoying the music. I can see exactly their movements, and some of them were really good at dancing. Like you go to a club, like normal club, there's a dance floor, and you just know these dudes are like good at dancing. They're really enjoying they have a beer in their hand. They don't have a beer in their hand in VR, but he told me a lot of these people are actually intoxicated, and they got an actual DJ, and Porter Robinson plays in that club sometimes, and he's kind of not the biggest like DJ or like musician ever, but he plays at EDC. That's pretty big, right?
Hmm.
So I was just like, this is crazy. I can feel the actual vibe through the body movements. Like I can see, okay, these people didn't like this song. They're not moving as much now. But like this, like that group, they love this song. They are vibing, and I'm like, this is insane that I can feel the amount of energy. I can feel like their mood. I can feel their presence just next to me, and it's like I was so intrigued by that. And then so I went there for 2 days, and then I just didn't go back in because like for a while, and then I go in again, and it's like I meet like 2 3 friends that I saw at the club, and something really interested me the second time I got in was I recognized this person because of the avatar they're in. It's the same one, but they changed their drip. And I was like, oh, what are these new logos on your shirt now? Like, and now it's like blue. It was just like black and white before. Like, well, like, what's this about? And he tells me this backstory about like these logos he have on now, like how he got this artist to make this for him, and he and I was like, yo, this is crazy. You're changing your drip in virtual reality because you just felt like you want a new look. Like, and he's just so happy and passionate when talking to me about it. And then, it did give me a different vibe of him. And I was like, this is literally like meeting someone just like in real life, except they wore something else, and with strong colors. And and like So I started reading into this topic academically. Like I was so intrigued. I was like, there's no way I felt this amount of bonding experience. Like when I talk to someone on text, I don't have this kind of bonding experience. But I talk to this guy in this 3D world, and I have this experience. And like, I was just confused. So I I read a bunch of papers, and they're like, I learned something. The academic term is presence, which means you genuinely feel someone is there with, because you can tell their facial expressions, you can tell their body expressions, if they're interested, if they're disinterested. And it introduces so much more. Like people tend to people have personal space in virtual reality, just as in real life, if you come up to them. Yeah, like if someone walks really close to you, you feel like slightly attacked of your personal
Hmm.
space. And if you hang out with someone in virtual reality, you genuinely have a sense of social fulfillment, which is not like texting someone online, right? So a lot of these were just like real, and I was like wondering why. And it's like, and there's all these other studies like, oh, if you see a sharp object in VR, your heart rate tend to go up,
Hmm.
just like seeing a sharp object in front of you in real life. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. And I was apparently the brain how the brain works is that as long as the input seems realistic and there's depth and there's like, and it doesn't have to even be like realism graphics, like 4K and all the like super real like shaders and like lightings. Like it doesn't have to be like as real as the real world, as long as it's like just enough, which is like the bar is pretty low.
Hmm.
You you will interpret it as real even though you know it's fake, which I thought was just the craziest idea ever, because it really just means like if you enter a virtual world with all your like headset and your body like trapped, you will feel shy, you will feel embarrassed, you will feel like just all that like anxiety of like people you don't know that may walk close up to you. Like everything is almost one-to-one replicate. Yeah.
That's
but the
crazy.
but the power yeah, so but the power of VR is like you can manipulate the environment, right? So I had the therapist in Eagle Capital's Discord chat that we hired just to it's like, oh, if anyone wants to consult you, we'll pay that. So we offered this free service for about a year or two. And he was really into VR, so it's like, oh, if you have a VR headset, we can do this in VR. And he would manipulate the environment to be a more peaceful environment. And then because they're behind avatars, they tend to talk about things more openly, and there's less of anxiety about knowing the real person. There's less, and so the sessions apparently, according to him, went really well. And um, so I was just mind blown by all of that. Like, dude, we can be in the room sipping tea, and then in the Apple Vision goggles, like we can be in the Himalayas. Like we don't even have to travel. We don't have to buy a car to get out, like to go somewhere to experience what we actually like, to actually feel like you're outside. You don't have to buy a car. You don't have to like fly there. You don't have to even make yourself look really well. You don't like girls don't need to put up makeup to look good. You can just like change like your avatar up a bit. You don't have to go to gym to look buff. You can just like manipulate the image. You don't have to like dress up well. You can just like get some artists to do it for you. Like, so all of that is just insanity to me. And that this is how it works. So I think a lot of industries will be replaced into this by this virtual one. Um, maybe a decade into the future, maybe 2 decades. I don't know how like society, like this is a massive trend we're talking about, because we're talking about a lot of on online people moving into a whole new like virtual world. Like this is a big societal change, and I think that's something really hard to predict when it happens. So I try to not like have a like say it like, oh, it will happen in 5 years with some like crazy conviction. So like I just don't know, right?
Mhm.
But I do think it is a point where it's inevitable, because it's yeah.
So I have so many questions, but I guess I'm curious, when you were talking about being in a virtual world and the research plus your own experience, that if there's a knife, you feel it, physical space, you're triggering the fight or flight part of your brain. But then as you were talking about the dance floor, I was thinking about the person that goes to a club and doesn't feel comfortable. Like maybe they have to have a couple of drinks because they don't want to dance. So they're kind of on the outside looking in. So there's
Right.
that insecurity or lack of confidence. And I was comparing that to the fact that you're in an avatar. So maybe you feel safer that it's not really you. And so that perhaps in a virtual world, either your confidence increases or you feel less insecurity. Or did you think that that was the same as the real world?
Maybe slightly less anxiety. I just remember I really regretted not having a full body tracking setup, because I love dancing in actual clubs, and I was like, fuck, these people can't see my dance moves, so that sucks. I wish I had a I wish I can like be part of the energy that was going on. Yeah.
And the belief that it will change it. So you've thought about this more than most people, but you know, the you don't have to go to the gym to get buff, and you know, Mrs. Cat doesn't have to spend a lot of time getting ready. You guys are immediately in your dance club, and you find someone and you're interested in them. What does that do to like that crossover of real life and this new virtual world?
I feel like it's actually quite easy to open up to someone in that kind of world, just because of this phenomena called online disinhibition. Although it's a stronger effect if you're talking to someone text to text, like they literally don't know who you are. Like you can't even tell the eye, like their expression at all. So like people tend to be way more open on text, especially like that's why you see all the like when you go to the darker side of the internet, there's a lot of toxicity, there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of like really bad things being said, right? But like you know very well if you met them in real life, they literally cannot say that to you. Like let's be real, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna get beaten up by this guy," right? Like they're not gonna say that. But so I think there is some level of anxiety where this guy, like people aren't just gonna be like, "Ah, this country sucks. Oh, your people sucks." Like I think there is a bit of barrier, but then on a personal level, there's still a lot of freedom. Like if you go to YouTube and you just like VR chat stories, like you see people meeting each other, and someone tells a crazy story, and they upload it online with the like the other person being okay with it, and like the very famous YouTube series of maybe just like 2-3 episodes of a Korean chicken. So he's a chicken in this virtual reality, and he talks about his experience when he had to do military service and what it was all like, and how much struggle he had when he came out and re-entered the society, and then going overseas to study abroad in California. And he talks about the story, and it's like he seems so free to talk about all of that, and it's like they literally just met, and it's like you're talking about your worst insecurities. He mentioned about like his brother passing away, like no shot someone like that just like meet up with someone and just have this whole conversation. So I thought that was a very interesting phenomena. Yeah.
Oh, it's fascinating. Kat, I feel like I could talk to you forever. This has been an absolute blast. Thank you for coming on the show, and I hope to have you again sometime.
Yeah, it was awesome talking to you.